This is Zenless Zone Zero, an upcoming action RPG that takes place across an urban setting with incredible combat and mind-blowing visuals. Imagine if Platinum Games made an action RPG set in the Jet Set Radio universe, and you basically have Zenless Zone Zero. I was fortunate enough to get an invite to the latest closed beta, so I want to thank Hoyoverse for this opportunity. Despite their release history, Zenless Zone Zero is unlike anything they've made before. The overall design is really wild, and I think you'll dig it. So in this video, I'll be sharing what I experienced in my 10 or so hours playing through the closed beta. To begin, let's touch on the story a bit. Much like past Hoyoverse releases, you'll choose your protagonist, in this case either Belle or Wise. These are siblings that own a video rental shop and moonlight as cyber hackers known as proxies. These proxies serve as guides through interdimensional realms called hollows. For the purposes of this game, hollows are basically dungeons you crawl through to find treasures, money, and other items used to upgrade your team. What's interesting though is these characters aren't playable in combat, at least not that I saw. You can explore the city with them, but they're mainly there for story purposes. Early on, the siblings run into a hollow explorer named Nicole. Her team fell deep into a hollow and she needs help guiding them out. Without giving too much more away, there's mysteries and MacGuffins abound that do a good job of making you want to learn more. For Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, I didn't really care about the overall story that much. I was really all about the gameplay for those games. But here with Zenless Zone Zero, I felt invested. I love a good mystery and the game did a fantastic job of setting this one up. Zenless Zone Zero also presents the story in really interesting ways. You of course have traditional cutscenes you might have been accustomed to in other Hoyoverse games, but they also make really good use of these comic book style story moments. They cut in stylish ways and really add to the overall urban flair the game is going for. The art itself is also incredible, so it was a real pleasure anytime any of these came up. The game also has a much goofier tone overall compared to the more serious ones found in Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact. Leading the charge in this respect are the first two playable characters, Billy Kid and Anby. They're complete opposites. Billy Kid is much more animated and exaggerated, whereas Anby is much more reserved, monotone, and robotic.
Wait, that wasn't me!
Hey guys, over here! Good work, all. It's a scarf-wearing talking bamboo.
Oh! You're amazing!
This dichotomy made for a lot of fun moments overall, and as each new character got introduced, it only added to the ridiculousness. For example, the game has all kinds of anthropomorphic characters like a cat girl, a giant bear, and some kind of ice demon. When my time with the beta came to a close, I was really shocked at how invested I was in the story, and I can't wait to dive deeper when the full game launches in 2024. Now, in terms of gameplay, this is where Zenless Zone Zero really gets wild.
It's showtime!
Now, it really differs compared to Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail because it's not a big, open, sprawling city like you might be expecting. In fact, it's very linear and stage-based. There is, however, a small portion of the city that you can kind of explore. It's mostly full of vendors and other side activities that I'll get to a little later. Now, once you begin a mission, you can choose a team of up to 3 characters. And once you choose your team, you'll be presented with this wall of TV screens, and it basically becomes a dungeon crawler. As you walk around, you'll pick up items, money, and other treasures. It starts off pretty simple, but eventually it adds unique obstacles like different floors you can go up and down between, buttons that need to be held down by using bigger objects, and springs that'll launch you across dungeons. And of course, you do eventually come across battles. But again, they're not in these big open areas. In fact, they're in smaller battle arenas with only a handful of enemies, and then you move on and keep going through these TV-like dungeons. Well, if you've played Genshin Impact, it's fairly familiar as you have a light and strong attack, a dodge. You can build up a meter to do a more powerful strong attack, and eventually building up to a huge special attack. The combat is also incredibly fast with tons of slick animations, and it just feels really good to play. Now, the one unique component to this game's combat is parries, but it's not what you think. There's no dedicated block button, so you can't actually parry with a specific character. In fact, what happens is you swap in characters just at the right time when enemies light up, and they'll jump in for a parry, and then you can do a follow-up attack. And based around the design of combat, you'll be doing this constantly, as there are so many different enemies on screen. You'll need to be parrying and swapping in characters for the right moments. Now, what's really nice is there's no cooldown timer for swapping characters, so like I said, you'll be finding yourself changing them out all the time. And because the animations are so slick, you'll just feel like a total badass. And when you complete a battle, your character kind of goes into this slow motion, often in a really cool pose with this slashed in the background. It looks really neat. Obviously, each character has their own unique weapons and combat style. For example, one of the characters you start with, Billy Kid, has dual pistols, and he's not only good for range, but for AoE because he constantly is spinning around and shooting bolts all over the place. Anby, on the other hand, is much more of a typical sword user, mainly for attacking one character at a time, and she can also launch characters and sort of juggle them for fun combos. Nicole is kind of a weird character that I didn't really enjoy playing. She has this bag that also sort of serves as a gun. She'll attack with it, but then she has these sort of long wind-up moves where these gravity wells will spit out and they'll do a bunch of area damage to enemies. But it sort of felt at odds with how fast Billy Kid and Anby were, so as soon as I got another character, I swapped her out. And speaking of which, I did get 4 other characters during my time playing, and of the 4 I got, Sokaku was probably my favorite. She's this sort of ice demon that has this big sword, and she's a little bit slower, but does this really cool frost debuff on enemies that really was helpful in bigger fights. Overall, I gotta say I loved the combat. It felt so fast, fluid, and just fun. It's incredibly stylish, so even if you're doing the most simple of attacks, it just looks really cool. However, my number one complaint was that the stages felt really short. There was a kind of stop and go nature to it because it's sort of a dungeon crawler where you're going from one short battle to the next. I just kind of wish the game would open up and let me fight a bunch of enemies kind of at my own pace. Now, maybe it does open up in the full version, but I never really got there with my time playing. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the gacha. Yes, Zenless Zone Zero has gacha elements where you can roll for extra gear and characters. You'll also need to level up your characters by grinding out items and feeding items into other items to upgrade skills and other things, much like Hoyoverse's other games. However, I really felt like I didn't need to engage with this if I didn't want to. I really loved the starting team, maybe outside of Nicole, and had a blast with them. I always feel like gacha rolls in Hoyoverse's games are kind of just fun bonuses every once in a while, and if you have that same mindset, then you can totally enjoy and have a great time for free. Now, outside of the cyber dungeon crawling and action combat, there's actually another fun little distraction, the arcade. In my time playing, there were 3 mini games. Well, basically 2. One is essentially Snake, where you're just a line eating little pixels, and the more you eat, the longer your snake gets, and you're trying to trap the opposing player. Now, there is a second game, but it's basically just Snake, but with 2 players. And then there's a third game that is kind of Dig Dug meets a match 3 kind of game. To me, this was the most fun, as you were constantly digging down, trying to finish the level and trying to match and beat the timer as well. I don't think there's any impact on your team or in the game overall. It's just sort of a fun distraction if you're tired of doing missions. And while Zenless Zone Zero is really fun to play, I feel like the game's greatest strength is its stylish visual flair.
Let's clear them out.
This won't hurt.
At a quick glance, Zenless Zone Zero probably looks like every other Hoyoverse game. In fact, it does have the same general art style and character design, but that's kind of where the similarities end. One look at combat and you can see how things have changed. Everything from the slick animations, the cool user interface, how the combat ends with that slash text emblazoned across the screen, not to mention the comic book panel sequences, the TV wall dungeons. Basically, everything is super unique and cool. I really enjoyed just looking at this game. Not to mention the character designs. I've said this before, but I think Hoyoverse has some of the best character designers in the entire gaming industry, like no joke. Here they have a very cool urban feel as everyone's got these really slick jackets, cool sneakers, goggles, masks, and like I said before, a lot of anthropomorphized characters like a bear, a cat girl, and so much more. And the music kind of has this electro hip-hop vibe to it. It fits combat in a shockingly good way, and it just gives everything a really cool and fun energy. To say the least, I loved everything about Zenless Zone Zero's presentation. It's really unique and different, and I can see why Jet Set Radio is so beloved. It just has a super unique style that not many games tried. While Zenless Zone Zero certainly isn't flawless, I had a fantastic time playing through this beta. The combat is absolutely electric, the presentation is really stylish and unique, and it also has a shockingly gripping story that I wanted more of. I don't know when an open beta or even the full launch is coming, but I imagine it'll probably be sometime in spring 2024. Right now it's only set to release for PC and smartphones, but if it's anything like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, it'll eventually come to consoles, or PlayStation at the very least. But what are your thoughts? And do you have any questions about the beta that I can answer for you? Drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer as many of them as possible. Now, while Zenless Zone Zero is really cool and exciting, we have to wait until sometime in 2024 to play the full version. But if you want to see the best JRPGs from 2023 that you can play right now, check out this video right here. And special thanks to Reset Switch, Tyler Kuzawa, and the Miyazaki Man for supporting me over on Patreon. To get exclusive videos and other cool perks, consider supporting me over on patreon.com/thegaming shelf. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.